Wow, the Memphis Grizzlies are firing on all cylinders as of late. I know I said the Cavaliers are the most surprising team in the league. Well, the Grizzlies are up there as well. The Grizzlies are definitely the most surprising team in the Western Conference, especially given the circumstances that have been thrown at them to start this season. Three main headlines for this team. One has to be Ja Morant's injury. Number two, their offensive fluidity to start the season. And number three, their gradual defensive improvements as the season's gone on. So, starting with Ja's injury. He got injured in mid-November. Before the injury, he was looking like an early season MVP candidate. Him along with DeMar, Steph, and KD. He was being really aggressive, getting to the rim as always, but he was just taking more shots per game, and he was hitting the three at the best rate that he's done in his career this season. He's been out the past 10, now 11 games. Moving on to the offensive fluidity. The Grizzlies' offense is really pleasing to watch. Obviously, without Ja, they're down one of the best point generators in the entire league. I'm talking scoring and assists, that combination. You think of point generators, you think of Luka, LeBron, Trey, three of those guys with just an insane combination of playmaking and scoring. Ja's up there. So without him, they're missing about 25 points per game and 7 assists per game. You're not going to approximate that value with one person. So the Grizz decided to spread the ball around a bit more. There's a lot of off-ball movement, big man handoffs, and off-ball screens, with a bunch of different people involved in different action. The variety they have in playmaking is a real spectacle. Tyus Jones is really the only true point guard on this team right now, with Ja being injured of course. He's been the main starter for the Grizz in Ja's absence. He runs the pick and roll very well. Dillon Brooks has really improved his playmaking ability coming off of last year, especially out of the drive. With him now being the number one option, he's facing a lot more help defense when he gets to the rim, and he's become a lot better at spotting the open man, or just spotting the open man when he gets blitzed on in pick and rolls. Like when the big man traps him in the high pick and roll, he's able to spot Steven Adams, Tillman, Jaron Jackson when the opposing big man hedges hard. Kyle Anderson has always been a good playmaking forward. He especially shines in the fast break, which is a situation that the Grizzlies like to find themselves in. D'Anthony Melton, though he's not a true point guard, he's starting to hit some tough passes when he gets downhill. And then for the centers, like Adams and Tillman, they've been pretty integral in this new offensive attack as well. They're running handoff plays for the perimeter guys, and a big thing to talk about with them is their passing out of off-ball cuts. Adams has had that in his game quite a bit, even in his OKC days, and I think it's shining as of late. He's often able to find Desmond Bane, I think Desmond Bane might be their best off-ball guy. Well, him and Dillon Brooks, but Desmond Bane is really able to get open off the ball with cutting a lot, and Adams is able to find him in a lot of that action. Tillman also has those opportunities, but he shows a lot more signs and gets more opportunities as a passer in that mid-screen and roll. Now, I alluded to the off-ball action, and I alluded to Bane and Brooks in that they're the main guys featured in that offense. Credit to Adams for being such an elite screen setter. He's like the Grizzlies' off-ball screen specialist. Most of the time, the on-ball screen guys are Jaron Jackson and Tillman. Adams does it quite a bit, but he's really their key off-ball screening guy. He's able to get Baines and Brooks open on the perimeter a lot, or just to get him some breathing room so they can get downhill off-ball. Triple J also gets some off-ball action, mainly with him being incredibly mobile for a quote-unquote big. He's able to get separation and get catch and shoot threes when he's being guarded by a slow-footed center sometimes if he gets the switch, or if he's playing small ball 5 sometimes. But they do run some three-point plays off the ball for Triple J. Moving into one-on-one scoring, there's three main guys to talk about here: Triple J, Dillon, and Bane. Triple J gets a lot of looks at the elbow or foul line extended, out of the triple threat. If he has a slow-footed big on him, he can take him off the dribble. He can make one dribble drive, gather, and get a good look at the rim. The Grizz also try to get him some mismatches in the post, but a lot of his inside scoring that doesn't come off of pick and rolls. It really comes from ISO drives, like the situation I just described. He does take a lot of unorthodox push shots and floaters for a big, like from outside the restricted area. That's holding his 2-point percentage a bit down, but he's capable of hitting those shots. They're tough nonetheless. I hope he can focus more on getting all the way to the rim and of course drawing more fouls. Because he's a slimmer guy and refs are going to give him the benefit of a doubt if he takes a bit of contact and gets sent into the first row. He's going to get a lot more of those calls because his body is going to sell contact a lot more than the average power forward. Moving to Dillon Brooks, he's really strong. He's really strong and really good at using his body to shield the defender, a way to get a good angle to finish at the rim. And for being 6'7", Dillon's not the bounciest NBA athlete. He's really a below the rim finisher, but he's really crafty in doing so. And on the perimeter, he can create a three, but he really has an affinity for the mid-range game. He's good at getting open pull-ups off of the pick and roll, and he can hit quite a few contested pull-ups out the ISO. He's also got a little bit of a post game. He's got a good post fadeaway. Mainly because of his frame, he can back down the opponent and get some space off of a bump or two. As for Desmond Bane, he's got a somewhat similar game and offensive game to Dillon Brooks. I mean, frame-wise, they're both pretty big wings, pretty strong wings, and they're really strong, and they use that when they drive. But Bane is more of an off-ball scorer, but he has shown a little bit of a mid-range game, and when he's had to ISO late in the clock, he's been able to create a three or two. The real source of his offense on ball comes when he's running the pick and roll and the defenders mistakenly go under screens against him. He's able to make them pay. Moving into the defensive end, the defensive focus of the Grizzlies. They were horrible on the defensive end early on. I don't really know why, because I wasn't paying attention to them early on before Ja was injured. But of these recent games I've seen, they've been brilliant. Bane and Brooks are good, strong defensive wings. Triple J has been a great help defender off-ball in his career, but he's vastly improved as an individual on-ball defender this year. D'Anthony Melton is a fucking menace of a defender. He's one of the most disruptive defenders in the league. He reminds me a lot of a prime Eric Bledsoe in his Clipper days. Kyle Anderson is slow, yes, but he's a sneaky good defender. He has good size and shows some really good instincts for getting a lot of steals and disruptions and block shots as well. Adams is a good defender when surrounded by good personnel, which he wasn't surrounded by in New Orleans, and I think that's showing itself this year compared to last. Tillman is a good defensive center off the bench as well. He gets in passing lanes extremely well for a big, and he's also a tad bit better of a perimeter defender than Adams. The Grizzlies really use their defense well for getting easy offense, with them being first in steals per game, third in blocks per game, sixth in points off turnovers, and first in fast break points. Moving into the current team, their guard rotation obviously is Ja when healthy, Desmond Bane, D'Anthony Melton, Tyus Jones, and John Conchar. Their forwards are Triple J, Dillon Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Killian Tilly, and Brandon Clark, who's also injured. And then their center rotation is Adams and Tillman. John Conchar is the main sniper off the bench for Memphis. Memphis has some very versatile and defensive forwards. Kyle Anderson can pretty much guard 2 through 4. Triple J has improved his perimeter defense, one-on-one defense. Dillon Brooks can guard anybody on the wing. And at the center position, yeah, the Grizzlies have two traditional rim running centers, but they're good at what they do. They don't really space the floor, but they're good defensively, and they're solid playmakers from the 5 position. So once Ja returns from his injury, their starting lineup should be Ja, Bane, Brooks, Triple J, and Adams. This is a lot of size surrounding Ja, who's 6'2", slim of frame, so ideally you want to have a lot of size on the court with him, and that's the case with Bane and Brooks as 2 really big, strong wings, Triple J being extremely lengthy, and Adams being probably the strongest player in the league. Diving into strengths and weaknesses, their strengths are their playmaking depth, inside scoring, and disruptiveness. Now the playmaking depth has really showcased itself in Ja's absence, which is why I kind of think this injury was a bit of a blessing in disguise for the Grizzlies. Obviously, just being a human being, you don't want to see anybody get injured, but this injury has enabled some guys to get more usage in recent games. If Ja was on the floor, maybe Tyus Jones doesn't really get the confidence, maybe Desmond Bane and Dillon Brooks don't really improve as playmakers as much as they've done in Ja's absence, you know? So I think this injury is a bit of a blessing in disguise, as some of these lineups are having either Bane or Brooks as the lead ball handler out there at times, which has kind of forced them to improve their playmaking game. Tyus Jones has been great. Kyle Anderson as a playmaking forward, Adams and Tillman spotting off ball cuts, etc. Other things that I've talked about. A lot of these Grizzlies emerging on the offensive side of the ball has happened because they've all had to have an uptick in their offensive responsibility. Now going into inside scoring, all their perimeter players really prefer getting to the rim over creating a three-point look. Brooks and Bane are great shooters, but they like to get downhill. DeAnthony Melton is a slasher. Jaron Jackson Jr., in his isolations, he really just gets to the rim. He's not really going to be creating a three-point opportunity for himself on ball. And then there's a lot of pick and roll action that creates opportunities for Adams, Tillman, and Triple J. And this action is where Brandon Clark is missed, because he makes a great impact in the pick and roll game, but he's missed 8 straight games with knee issues, and I don't think there is a definite timetable for his return. As for disruptiveness, Melton and Jones are really disruptive in the backcourt. Bane and Brooks and Anderson are great defenders on the wing, and they're also very disruptive. Tillman gets savvy steals from the 5, and Triple J is one of the league's best help side defenders. Moving into weaknesses now, this team doesn't really have that many blatant weaknesses, believe it or not. I'm just going to say it's their second option efficiency and their ceiling. As for second option efficiency, this is for like when Ja comes back. Can Brooks and Triple J be more efficient as second and third options, or maybe even Bane should be in this conversation, because this is something that will really dictate how far Memphis can go, obviously, when postseason comes around. Now, as for the ceiling, I do think Ja can be the best player on a championship team at some point in his career. I believe it, but he's gonna need star help, and I don't think Dillon Brooks is the second option on a championship team. Neither do I think that guy is Triple J. Triple J can be the second best player maybe on a championship team due to his defensive impact, but not the second option. So the ceiling on this team is really just them being a second round playoff team. I only say that the ceiling is their weakness because every team's ideal goal is to win a championship. And the Grizzlies honestly don't have that many other glaring weaknesses. And this is only something that we're gonna really have to focus on when we get a little further in Ja's Memphis career. But I mean, just because I'm saying that their ceiling is a second round playoff team, that doesn't mean it's fucking 100% correct. Who knows, maybe Triple J, Dillon, or Desmond can develop into what the Grizz will need for them to raise their ceiling. They're still very young, still very early on in their development. The Memphis Grizzlies are deserving of your attention. It looked like their season would fall off a cliff after the Ja injury, but the opposite came into fruition, as they're one of the hottest teams in the league. Desmond Bane's efficiency and defensive prowess has carried over from his rookie season. He's just increased his overall output with higher usage. Dillon Brooks has been extremely aggressive as a scorer after missing the first month of the season recovering from a hand injury. And when Ja was sidelined, he stepped up as this team's lead shot getter. Jaron Jackson is probably the best player on this team with Ja out due to his versatility. He's one of the league's best help defenders and has addressed the only real hole in his defensive game, individual defense, as he's a much better one-on-one stopper this season. He's a well-known stretch 4, but is also striving to become more consistent scoring inside, not just off of pick and rolls, but also off Giannis-type ISO drives, foul line extended. The Grizzlies have become more confident in this time spent without Morant, but obviously Ja is still the player that they need to put them over the top, and he'll return to the team eventually. If he can pick right back up from his elite performances before his injury, while not derailing the newfound confidence of the Grizzlies, which has emerged in this most recent stretch of team success, Ja will make Memphis extremely dynamic. In my opinion, they're not a fluke. The Grizzlies have serious potential of keeping a top 4 seed in the Western Conference.